Ukrainian forces have liberated the key village Limon in the country's south, recovering bodies of Russian soldiers in the streets.
Allies of jailed Russian opposition activist Alexei Navalny have announced that they will create a huge regional network to prevent further deaths in the war in Ukraine.
The Netherlands, Italy, France and members of EU Parliament stand in solidarity with Iranian women as mass unrest continues following the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini.
Russia no longer has total control of any of the 4 provinces it claims to have annexed after Ukrainian troops reportedly advanced dozens of kilometres into Kherson province. The claim comes from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who says his troops have broken through Russian defences in the south while expanding their rapid offensive in the east, threatening supply lines for Russian troops.
Dozens of villages have already been liberated from the Russian pseudo-referendum this week alone. Kherson, Kharkiv, Luhansk and the Donetsk regions.
The US has just announced an additional $625 million in new security assistance for Ukraine. The package provides what the Defence Secretary said was more of the systems and equipment the Ukrainians have been using so effectively. Russia is keeping up its shelling of what it calls strategic targets. Images show the aftermath of Russian strikes on an electrical substation and factory in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city. Recruits from southern Russia have been filmed training in Russian-controlled Donetsk. The Kremlin says it plans to call up 300,000 people. Russia's defence ministry has promised only to draft those who've got combat or service experience.
While Russia continues with its plan to annex the occupied territories in Ukraine, here at the European Parliament, MEPs are also demanding more action. The morning of this Wednesday, they will hold a debate. It will be accompanied by a resolution this Thursday morning that they will vote. And they are asking mainly 2 things in this resolution. The first one is they want more military support coming from the European countries. They want mostly this military support to be upgraded and especially to be coordinated among all member states. At the same time, they are also asking for more sanctions against Russia that will be put up by the European Commission and approved by all the member states. Earlier, I spoke with MEP Sophie in 't Veld from Renew Europe, and she told me that she wants to see more unity in member states.
I think it is about time that the government leaders understand that we're in a situation of crisis, and this is not a situation for national short-term interest. This is a situation where you have to be bigger than your national interest, joint forces, and yes, that means occasionally that you don't get to win it all. That means that they have to be united on sanctions, they have to be united on energy policies, they have to be united on fighting inflation, they have to be united.
That was MEP Sophie in 't Veld from Renew Europe, who was telling us how she wants more unity from member states. In the debate that will be held this Wednesday morning in the European Parliament, MEPs will also discuss the recent incidents in Nord Stream. Aida Sanchez Alonso, Euronews, Strasbourg.
In the YouTube message, Alexei Navalny's political movement is reborn from the ashes. A year after being branded an extremist organization and outlawed, allies of the jailed opposition activist have announced that they will create a huge regional network to prevent further deaths in the war in Ukraine. The revival of the anti-government movement comes against the backdrop of the growing dissatisfaction of part of the population with the partial mobilization decreed by President Putin, a disconnect that Navalny's faithful are trying to capitalize on. In addition to soliciting the help of artists, lawyers, hackers, or simply people willing to print and deliver leaflets, the communiqué again calls for Navalny's release. The famous opposition leader was imprisoned in January 2021 when he returned to Russia from Germany, where he received medical treatment for poisoning with the chemical agent Novichok. He was sentenced to 11 years in jail.
Shows of support for anti-government protesters in Iran have spread across Europe. In the Netherlands, hundreds of demonstrators marched on the Dutch Parliament in solidarity. Anger in Iran has spilled over after more than 2 weeks of protests. It follows the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who was detained by police for allegedly breaching rules requiring women to wear hijab headscarves and modest clothing. In Italy, visits to the Maxi National Centre for Contemporary Arts and Architecture in Rome left locks of their hair in a transparent box at the reception as a symbol of support for Iranian women. The box will later be delivered to the Iranian embassy in the capital.
They need to know that they're not alone. They need to know that what they're asking, which are basic human rights, is something that we want to fight alongside with them.
Even at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, during a debate on the protests in Iran, one member of Parliament took a scissors to her own hair and called for an end to violence against Iranian women.
Until the women of Iran are free, we are going to stand with you. Jian, Azadi, women, life, freedom.
Herzlichen Dank.
And in Paris, French MPs and ministers observed a minute's silence in the National Assembly in homage to Iranians who have paid with their lives for their fight for freedom.
Producing energy and car fuel from livestock waste. It sounds too good to be true, but this is what is actually occurring on this farm near Piacenza, north of Italy. Here, 600 cows live serenely producing the daily amount of milk requested of them. They are unaware that their waste is being used to help motorists cut fuel costs for their cars dramatically. Originally devoted for breeding, farm holiday and the sale of dairy products, the owners of this family-run business decided to push their enterprise a step further.
Over the last few years, we have started a project that is allowing us to produce renewable energy and to have an actual circular economy. I mean, we can produce energy from animal excrement and livestock waste, along with agricultural byproducts.
Who would have thought? Cows are helping humans overcoming the energy crisis, and they are doing so in the most unexpected ways. We already drink their milk and eat their meat. But now we are also using their, let's say, digestion waste to get cheap fuel for our cars.
Behind the farm, a specific structure extracts biomethane from animal waste and transports it directly to the front, where customers patiently wait at the pump to get their cheap gas. The process is directly from producer to consumer through a few meters of a small yellow pipe. Motorists here can get a full tank of gas at a very convenient price of 1.39 euros per kilo, which is about half, or in some cases even a third, of current prices.
We produce biosustainable fuel from our livestock waste, and the idea that this agricultural company is able to input it into the transport system is extremely gratifying on a personal level.
The gas station opened last February, a couple of weeks before Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the sudden surge in the costs of energy and fuel. But here they've found a sustainable way to fight the crisis, from farm to pump. Luca Palamara for Euronews, Piacenza.
The Erkel Theatre in Budapest, Hungary, welcomed its first visitors almost 111 years ago. But this winter, the historic venue, which forms part of the prestigious Hungarian State Opera, will be keeping its doors closed. Organisers say soaring utility costs sparked by Europe's energy crisis have made heating the building unsustainable. To curb energy consumption, Hungary's government ordered a 25% reduction in the use of electricity and gas in public buildings.
Utility bills have become more expensive by 8-fold, sometimes 10-fold. But that's where we are for now. We are not 100% sure about any of these numbers, but I do know that the order of magnitude is huge. Something needed to be done because, after all, people's wages and maintaining our other buildings are more important. And if we keep those in mind, then we will have to turn down the heating in the others.
The struggles faced by theatres in the country are not limited to the capital. Indeed, many local authorities have ordered cinemas and museums to close for the winter to avoid being hit by sky-high prices. As Russia tightens its squeeze on gas supplies to Europe, the bloc is facing tough decisions to offset this energy emergency.